Welcome to another episode of the YXE Sports Podcast, a special edition episode of the YXE Sports Podcast, as we're joined by a returning guest who we'll get to in a little bit. Of course, we are live on the Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar Facebook page. We're live on the YXE Sports Podcast Facebook page, and we're also live on No YXE. Of course, we're not down at Wendell's today, but that's okay. We are live on their Facebook page, and that's all that matters. Joining me now again is Justin D'Entremont, of course, commissioner, co-founder, player of the Saskatchewan Premier Ball Hockey League. And Justin, you can kind of, well, maybe not quite yet, but you can kind of take a little bit of a deep breath because the regular season portion of the Premier Ball Hockey League is over.
Yeah. Mr. Morrison, how are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Great. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it happened quick, but regular season's over. And
regular season's over. Championship weekend, of course, coming up September 18th and 19th, and we'll get into the ins and the outs of the championship weekend coming up in a little bit. But because the regular season has come to a close, all four teams did a fantastic job. I thought that all four teams were evenly matched for the most part. I think there were some teams that were up against it a little bit more than other teams, just with players not being in the lineup and that sort of thing. But why don't we review the four teams in the first season of the Saskatchewan Premier Ball Hockey League, Justin? And that starts with the Ravens. So why don't you kind of start? The floor will be yours to begin, and then I'll throw in my 2 cents after. But unfortunately for them, they did finish last in the standings, although a lot of those games that they played in, I think was a little bit closer than the scoreboard indicated. And the scoreboard also indicated that some of the games that they did play in were 1 or 2 goal games.
Yeah, they had some unfortunate things happen, the Ravens, just with players missing and whatnot. But so we'll go back to the first game day on July 24th. The Ravens played the Bucks. For their first game, they lost 6-5 in a tight one there, and then they later lost 7-4 to the Bucks. And then on August 7th, they got shut out by the Axemen 5-0. And then they got a 6-5 overtime win against the Axemen in what I think was the best game of the season so far. And then on August 28th, they lost 9-6 to the Snowbirds, and then lost 8-2 by the mercy rule by the Snowbirds in their last game of the regular season. So a couple things worth noting for the Ravens is their key players that were not there, like you mentioned. Robert Keller, Dane Bumfrey, Jeff Bissett, all were absent more than they were present. And I mean, that's 3 of their best players. That's 2 of their scoring forwards. And that was kind of an issue for the Ravens. Their goals differential was 23 goals for, 40 against. So you can kind of see they were lacking a little bit in offense, and having those players there would have helped and will help come playoffs, because they'll be there and it'll make them look like a little bit of a different lineup. So, I mean, it's a good team, like everybody is. Another thing is, I believe, I'm just observing and speaking here, but I believe their plan was to go a lot with Isaac LaBelle in net throughout the season, but they ended up playing him as a forward several times because they were short players, and he can hold his own as a forward as well. So then Mitch Deason got in 3 games early and ended up playing pretty well, actually. And so things have shifted. So it's kind of interesting to see how things are going to go. And then with Isaac LaBelle actually went back to school now, so he's not going to be available for championship weekend. So they have Mitch, and then they made that trade for John Rose. So they have the 2 goalies now. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. Offensively, Austin Tuchuk and Justin Monahan with 9 points and 8 points. Monty is a D, 8 points from the back end. And then they have 5 players all had chipped in with 4 points. Evan Pasternak, Jeff Bissett, Skylar Knapp, Bo Gervais, Joey Velasquez. So you can just kind of see the numbers tell a bit of a story there. They're just lacking, or they did lack, some offense. But championship weekend, you just got a couple games to do your thing. And with these other notable players showing up, I mean, that's a good team. That's a good team. It's not going to be a cakewalk for anybody. So it'll be good. It'll be, and they also added James McDonough in that trade, who's another depth forward who had 3 points in 4 games, including 2 goals. So they're going to be better on championship weekend. That's going to be the best lineup that they put together. So that's great for them. So we'll see. We'll see. What are your thoughts on the Ravens, Matt?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think I actually have written in my notes here that they were a little bit snake bitten throughout the course of the season, just due to, players, primarily offensive players, not being there. They made that trade for John Rose, who started both games of the last game of the regular season, or last week of the regular season. He was absolutely peppered by the Snowbirds, but I thought, there was definitely times where he showed flashes of what he can do in between the pipes, and I think that he held his own as well as he could have. So you're right. I think with their entire roster there, it's going to be a little bit of a different team, and we kind of saw that in the last week of the regular season. Keller being there was a huge help already, right? And that's just one player, one of the few that were missing. So I do think that each game that they've played, they have improved, and with a full roster and a full lineup, I'm really excited to see what they can do. And like you said, it's the playoffs, and anything can happen in the playoffs, right? So it should be a heck of a weekend for them, and all it takes is one game. So they might have the game of their lives on September 18th, and you never know when that situation happens, right? They're playing the Axemen in the first game of the playoffs. Well, not first game. I believe it's first round. I believe that's the second game on Saturday. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct.
But they're going up against the Axemen, who had a pretty good regular season themselves. Obviously, they were led by guys like Josh Laframboise, who's just a pure sniper, Christian Magnus, Holden Knights, who obviously wasn't there for the final game of the regular season. And they're a little bit of a younger team as well, but those young guys have some talent.
Yeah, absolutely. They're, I guess you could say they're top heavy with offense.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back at the Axemen game by game here. On July 24th, they opened up the first game against the Snowbirds. The Snowbirds won 9-3 in a mercy. And then the second game was a very good game, arguably the best game of the season. Snowbirds beat the Axemen 5-4 in overtime. That was the game that had like all kinds of lead and then tie.
Lead changes,
yeah. And then on August 7th, Axemen shut out the Ravens 5-0. Brandon Schatz getting the only shutout of the season there.
I was going to say, I was looking at that. Sorry to cut you off. He had the inaugural shutout of the Premier League, and to this day, the only shutout. So he'll go down in the history books.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's been a very high-scoring league. Mm-hmm. So, and considering that, shutout is even a little more impressive. But so moving on, and then later in the day, the Ravens beat the Axemen 5-4 in overtime. So that's the Axemen's second overtime loss. And then on August 28th, they lost 6-2 to the Bucks, and then 7-5 to the Bucks, which was actually a very good game, the last game of the regular season there. Morgan Suter, I believe it was Morgan, scored with less than a minute left because he was tied 5-5. Scored
56 or 57 seconds left or something like that, if I can remember correctly. And then they had an empty netter as well. But that one came down right to the wire, and the Axemen were rotting with a short bench that game too. So that was just an all-around gutsy performance by them. Obviously, didn't end the way that they would have liked, but nonetheless, in my opinion, that was one of the performances of the tournament, considering what their roster was looking like for that final game.
Yeah. Wow, they would have lost in overtime anyway. Yeah, just kidding. No, it was funny. That was one of those games where I was disappointed when Suter scored because it was such a good game. I wanted to keep watching hockey, and then when he scored with a minute left, it's like, now it's going to be over. I wanted to keep watching this game. But no, the Axemen are interesting because they couldn't go off with those names you mentioned with Christian Magnus, Josh Laframboise, Holden Knights, Caleb Griffin, Jadrian Genther has been one of the nice surprises when he's jumped up and played some minutes on that top line. He totally holds his own. He can play with Laframboise and Magnus, no problem. So yeah, I mean, like you said, pure sniper in Laframboise. He's a gifted goal scorer. and Mags is a very well-rounded offensive player, good athlete. So yeah, and then they got Brandon Schatz in net, who is by far the most experienced goalie in the league, with roughly 30 starts at men's A nationals. Like nobody else has anything close to that, if any, come to think of it. So I mean, a team with a lot of offense, good goaltending. And another thing worth noting when I was looking through some numbers here is they had Russell Robson, who is, I mean, arguably their best D, or in the top 2 or 3 anyway. He only made the first 2 games of the season and he missed the next 4. He's a valuable player that wasn't there, and he'll be there in playoffs, and that's going to help a lot. And they also had Jesse Kloos miss 3 games, and Jan Lucier miss 4 games. So that's 3 defensemen who missed significant time. And again, it's one of those things you can't tell me that doesn't matter. You know, they add 3D to their lineup now, and you know, you're just deeper, and now everyone's fresh, and you're not just adding players, but you're adding like pretty good players. So it's gonna be impactful. So we're just gonna wait and see how impactful it's going to be. And also another thing that on top of their offense that they have been producing, they also have 2 players that are good offensive players who have just kind of been cold. They haven't caught fire yet, and that's Carson, Bogdan, and Tyson Getzinger. The 2 of them are very good players, and they're good offensively. Getzy lives in Lloyd. He usually plays in the Lloydminster League, but they didn't have enough players to have a league this year. So, I mean, there's a handful of them from Lloyd, and it sucks. They don't have a league to play in. So they show up for these Premier League games, and they're not sharp, right? They're rusty because they're not playing weekly like everyone else is. So that it's unfortunate. And Boggs is a good offensive player who, like I said, he just hasn't been clicking yet. But those are 2 players that if they can both have 2-3 point games, and you know, that's even scarier for their opponent, because they have more offense even than they're showing so far, even though offensive has been their main thing. So it's exciting with them. The Axemen, it's their offense that's kind of their strength, and then the Ravens, it's kind of their back end that are the strength. So we'll see. I mean, I'm looking forward to that first game, and that's a do or die game. That game 2 of playoffs, whoever loses is eliminated for the season, and then the winner moves on to the semis. So all hands on deck. It'll be a good one.
Offense first defense, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to, and those are the most exciting games, in my opinion. The Axemen, obviously, with Brandon Schatz in net too, so they have a good goalie between the pipes. So that should be one heck of a game. And
just to jump in for a second, that's not to discount Landon Moldenhauer, who's been good this year, but he's actually not going to be present.
Yeah.
So it's pretty obvious that Schatz, he's going to be their guy. But Moldenhauer's been good. He's actually played 4 of the 6 games, and he's been peppered. He's faced by far the most shots. He's faced 132 shots in 4 games, which is 36 more than the second most shots. So he's been busy, and he's held them in at times for sure. But Schatz is definitely going to be their guy going forward.
Robbie Huffnagel and Greg Cunningham for the Snowbirds have been good as well, but I would say tandem-wise, Moldenhauer and Schatz are probably with Cunningham and Huffnagel 1A and 1B, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion. But moving on to the 1 versus 2 matchup, it'll be the Bucks against your Snowbirds. Justin, when I look at the Bucks, I look at, again, obviously, you know, how good they are. Offensively, Terrell Drowdy led the league in goals, just that big body up front, and that was kind of the theme for the Bucks. I thought they were just big, and you know, with guys like Drowdy and Navrot and Anderson and Josh Grimm, just big body guys that can get to the nets and put the ball in the net as well, and that's been part of the reason for their success.
Yeah, they're intimidating. I mean, with how they're big, and like you're saying, they're big and powerful and strong, and those big bodies compete hard too.
Yeah,
they're not soft, any of them.
Yeah.
So that's twice as good, you know. So we'll go back here to the start. So the Bucks, their game results are in July 24th. They played the Ravens. They won 6-5 and 7-4. And on August 7th, they were without Anderson and Drowdy, which are, the numbers show they're kind of leading the way on their team there. So they were without them both against the Snowbirds. So that was definitely impactful. But anyway, Snowbirds won 6-3 and then 8-2 in a mercy. And then on August 28th, they had a good lineup again. And then they played the Axemen and won 6-2 and then 7-5. So yeah, they had 2 of their 6 games where they did not have Drowdy and Anderson, and it was evident. It showed. There's no question. They have 31 goals for on the season, and Drowdy and Anderson have 34 points. So, I mean, it says a lot, right? Like they're for real. There's no easy games when you're playing against either of those guys. Terrell has just been like, I went back and I go through the footage and compile some of the stats and stuff. So, and like, man, the goals that he scores, like he scores really nice goals, like every game where he's carrying it in from center and he's dangling somebody and then sniping, and then the goalies have to be aware that of his shot. So they got to come out and challenge. And when they do, he has no problem putting a little fake and then coming backhand with his long reach because he's tall. It's tough. Gifted point producer, no question. And then with Josh Anderson, Jandy, call him, he's just so dominant in all aspects of the game. Like he's a true centerman he's got big old feet when he runs. It's like you could hear him like a lizard, slap. But he's everywhere. He's such a good athlete. He's so long and strong. When he boxes you out, he protects the ball better than anybody. So the 2 of them are scary, and they're both very good. And they have a good supporting cast too, even though the numbers don't necessarily show maybe on paper, but that's just on paper. Like you said, like Grimm fills in perfectly with how they play there, and Navrot. And then even like Alex Riendo fills in playing on a line with those 2 big guys, and he totally holds his own. He can play with those guys. Emmett Bear. I always do that. Emmett Bear, same thing. Good offensive player, good shot. He likes, he can play well with offensive players. Morgan Suter, Keith Mitchell has been huge. Keith has become very versatile, can play forward and D, and he's been great wherever you put him. A couple things that I noted though about the Bucks is Dean Crossland just played his first 2 games on August 28th. He missed the first 2 game days, and Dean is impactful. So when he's on the back end there, he's going to log a lot of minutes. He's so experienced in ball hockey. He's seen every level. Nothing's going to scare him, and he can keep up. He battles very hard. James Pasternak, on paper, he only has 1 point, but it doesn't matter. Everybody knows how good James is and how dominant he can be. Him and his brother Evan are both, their stick is so good. They pick off everything. It's frustrating. And then Lee Colby on the back end has been quietly very good. Lee's a good player. Mm-hmm. And then going through the video, I noticed Lee a lot more, and I already knew he was pretty good, but like a lot of subtleties. And then even like a guy like Mark Noel, who quietly just competes very hard, puts his body in the way all the time. Like they have good D that compete hard back there to go along with their big, powerful, physical forwards. Like this is a good team who is not at all going to be easy for anybody to beat. So that's my thoughts on them.
Yeah, no, I agree. A lot of experience with the Bucks too, just with the guys that have played at different levels and things like that, and different tournaments. And then finally, last but not least, the Snowbirds. Justin, that's the team that obviously you play for. To me, it was clear they were the champs of the regular season. But I will say that oftentimes in the National Hockey League, the President's Trophy winner rarely wins the Stanley Cup. But when I look at the Snowbirds, I just look at kind of all-around skill, right? You got the guys up front you got the guys on the back end, and then obviously the guys in net too, mainly led by yourself, Brock Harrison, Colton Adair, who didn't make it to the first game back in July, but he's been so good. Antoine Nataway's, as well, and then Lamontagne, Potterdeski, those guys on the back end.
Yeah, so I play on the Snowbirds, so I'm just going to do my best to be objective here. And when I talk about myself as a player, I'm just going to say D'Entremont and I'm going to carry on. And I understand that's kind of awkward, but it is. So yeah, Snowbirds will go to the start here. So game by game, Snowbirds' first game against the Axemen, they won 9-3 in a mercy, and then beat the Axemen 5-4 in overtime. August 7th against the Bucks, they won 6-3, and then 8-2 in a mercy. And then on August 28th, they won 9-6 against the Ravens, and then again against the Ravens, 8-2 in a mercy. Yeah, Snowbirds are going to be tough. There's a lot of depth offensively. I think that's the biggest thing that's been going for the Snowbirds. The goals for and against, there's a big differential. I mean, there's 3 mercies in there, but they're for different reasons. Like, there wasn't that big of a gap. Like the different ones, we're playing teams that had, key players not there for a game, and then just whatever things worked out that way, where there's a couple lopsided scores. But because there was lopsided scores, there's a lot of big numbers in the stats. Brock Harrison has been great. Leading the league with 23 points in 5 games. And then D'Entremont, 18, Nataway is 14, Jack State 11, Adair 11. Both of those, Jack State and Adair missed 2 games, and they still put up 11 points. And then Corey Steffiuk with 9. So there's definitely a lot of depth there. Which also produces some kind of wild plus minus numbers there too. But
yeah,
it's just due to a couple of those unfortunate kind of lopsided games. A couple key notables actually is Bryce Williams on D just got 1 game played out of the 6 for just different personal reasons. But Bryce adds a lot in the back end. And then the Snowbirds made the trade for Jarrett Penner, who plays D. So that's 2 key additions on the back end that the Snowbirds haven't had really this season. Bryce for just 1 game. So that's going to be impactful. And then Joel Thompson as well, only played half the games. And Joel's a very experienced, a very good player. And maybe at times if his stats don't jump off the paper like they used to, it doesn't matter. People that play with Joel know how good Joel is. He's a true centerman who wins battles and makes subtle team first plays all the time, very trustworthy. And so having Joel play is going to be huge. Goaltending's been good. All 6 games, Cunningham, Hufnagel. So like you said, though, the team hasn't really faced adversity yet. And that sometimes can be trouble, as sports people know. You have to be able to overcome some issues and some adversity, and that's how you win. So like nobody ever breezes through and just crushes everyone the whole way and wins. That's just not how it goes, and that's not how this is going to go. I'm pretty confident saying that. So that's the big thing, is to see how things play out. And when things start to go wrong for the Snowbirds, how are they going to handle it? So that's my thoughts on the Snowbirds.
That's your thoughts on all 4 teams, as well as we kind of look at the regular season in review for the 4 teams in the Saskatchewan Premier Ball Hockey League. We'll get to the playoffs coming up in a little bit, but of course we are live on the Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar Facebook page. We're obviously not at Wendell's today, but we will be back on Monday night. It's NFL kickoff tonight, so Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar has all your needs served for that. $5 bevies at Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar for Thursday night football, Sunday football, Monday night football. There's weekly square boards as well, also weekly pick'ems, and you can win some autographed swag. So make sure you come on down to Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar to watch Thursday night football, Sunday football, or Monday night football, and get in on some of those awesome things that they have going on there. So the first round of the playoffs, if you want to call it that, will be happening on Saturday, September 18th, right? So that has the Snowbirds facing off against the Bucks, and then the Axemen facing off against the Ravens. And I know that you've talked about this many times before, Justin, but just in case we have some new listeners or people you haven't watched or listened in the past, it's like a curling draw. So give us a little bit of a rundown now that we know which team is playing which and where they fall in the standings. Give us a rundown once more of how the playoffs work for the Premier Ball Hockey League.
Yeah, there's 4 games in total, 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. So the first game is the 1-2 game. So the Snowbirds versus the Bucks. The winner goes right to the final, and the loser goes to the semifinal. And then game 2 is the Axemen versus Ravens. That's the 3-4 game. Loser is eliminated. Winner goes to the semifinal on Sunday morning against the loser of game 1. And then the semifinal, just whoever wins that plays an hour later in the final against the winner of game 1. So it's 4 games. I think it's a good way to do it this year. I'm happy, looking forward to it because everybody has a chance still. So that's what I like most about it. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Well, and that's the thing. You look at a team like the Ravens that, throughout the course of the regular season has been snake bitten or, for this, that, and whatever. And now obviously they have the potential for a full roster heading into the playoffs. It would suck for them not to at least get an opportunity to at least play, right? And see what they can do with a full roster in the playoffs, where we know the intensity ramps up, every mistake is magnified, and anything can really happen in the playoffs, especially in these one and dones, right? Or at least in that game, the one and done, right? So
yeah. No, absolutely. That's what I find most exciting is just all those things you're just saying. It's still very much open to anybody. There's one thing I forgot to mention to you, Matt, when we were chatting before we went on air here is actually I did a survey. I polled all the managers yesterday and last night about I was curious to see who the front runners are for the individual awards.
Right.
So I got some results here that are I thought it would be fun to mention.
Yeah, so for sure.
These mean nothing yet because the way we're doing it is regular season and playoffs all count as one for the individual awards, including leading scorer, all of them. It's just going to be so the final vote is going to be after the championship game, and then we'll actually officially get it out. But I thought after the regular season would be a good time to see who people think are the front runners right now. So I'll kind of give like a top 3. So the awards are league MVP, top forward, top D, top goalie, rookie of the year, and the new Toughness Award, which is a unique thing. So a rookie, because everyone's a rookie right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's first time Premier League players.
Yeah.
So for us, a rookie is you got to be 23 years old or younger, and you could have never participated in a A or B level national tournament, or you could not have played in the B division in Saskatoon, which is the most competitive. So that's our criteria or whatever for rookie of the year. And then the Toughness Award is mainly based on blocked shots, but not entirely. The idea is this is supposed to be an award for those players that never win awards, like defensemen or grindy type players who
heart and soul guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Block shots and are willing to absorb physical punishment, basically, for in the name of their team success. Yeah. So that's the idea. So that one is that's so new. A lot of names came up for that. So I'll run through top forward. The top 3 in the survey is Brock Harrison, Terrell Droughty, Christian Magnus are kind of our 1, 2, 3 right now in top forward. Top D, bit of a separation. Lance Montang and then after James Pasternak and Justin Monahan, those were so far the top 3 in running for top D. And goalies, Brandon Schatz and Greg Cunningham were the top 2, kind of separated from the rest. And then rookie of the year, Antoine Nadeways from the Snowbirds, who's been awesome this year.
Yeah.
He got votes from basically everybody, I think. And then Darwin Morin, very similar player. The two of them are good friends, actually. Got a lot of votes as well. And then Jarrett Penner and Jadrian Genther as well. So the four of them are separated from the rest of the pack. And then for the Toughness Award, Brendan Jones from the Axemen in the lead, Lance Lamontagne, because everyone, a lot of people know he's hurt, so they know he's putting up with a lot right now. And Josh Grimm, Michael Anderson, Matthew Coe, Russell Robson, even though he's only played the 2 games. So this was exciting for me. I had fun with this, seeing who the managers think are kind of in the lead and the top dogs in these categories thus far. So I just thought that'd be a fun thing to bring up and see where you think things are at right now.
No, for sure. Absolutely. And I would agree with the majority of that list too. And you can make an argument for a guy like Mark Noel to be on the Toughness Award, right? He might not, block a ton of those shots, but man, does he just get in there and he battles his tail off, right? That's what I kind of noticed about him. So
yeah, there's like 15 names here for his, because everyone was never, this is new to everybody, so they just started thinking. And so there's a lot of players though who put up with a lot of pain. And Mark Noel, that was cool. By the way, I enjoyed watching Mark Noel and Seth Noel go at it, father and son, there on August 28th, and they were battling pretty hard a few times. I don't know if you know them, Matt, but like they're Pops, that's what they call Mark, the dad. He's 50 years old. He's in great shape. He competes very hard. That's the only way he knows how to do it. So, and he has five sons, 4 or 5. I should know that. But anyway, they all play, and one of them's in the military now. They're all that way. They play hard and they compete hard, and I enjoyed that a lot, actually, watching the father and son go at it. And
you can definitely tell that Mark and Seth are cut from the same cloth.
Yeah,
right? for sure. They both compete extremely hard. Just before we wrap up, I do want to give a shout out to Josh Anderson and Lance Lamontagne, because they were announced earlier this week that they have made the men's Team Canada 40-man selection camp roster in Montreal. Why don't you just give us a little bit of a rundown, kind of how that stuff works in ball hockey, and just how big of an honor it is.
Yeah, for sure. Men's Team Canada has not been doing it this way for quite a while now. It's hard with ball hockey right now. It's not like the NHL. You don't have unlimited resources to go watch games and watch players. So the way it's usually worked is they select a GM for the team and an assistant GM or whatever, and then those two watch all the games at Men's A Nationals, and they basically compile a team from that. But Canada hasn't won in a while. Like, they're always close. They're always a contender, but Slovakia won, I think, 4 years in a row at the World Championships, and that sort of thing. So I think they're trying to change things so that they can try to get back on top. So they're doing a 40-man selection camp in Montreal, which is a great idea. So they have Daniel Medeiros, the GM of Team Canada, Matt Louie, assistant GM. I know both of them. They're both really good guys and in it for the right reason. So they made some changes, and I spoke with both of them about what they're looking for, and they're looking for guys just like Lance and Josh, like tall, good athletes with good attitudes, and I'm very happy for the both of them. Especially I'm very happy for both of them, but Josh, this was his first Men's A Nationals, first one ever. Lance has played in 8, I think, or something, and we've all been saying he should have had a legitimate look much sooner than this, but at least it came now, which is better than never. But with Josh, he's still 25, 26 years old, or however old he is, and his first Nationals, and he gets the invite to camp. So there's it's promising. It just looks good for our future in Saskatchewan, because we've only ever had one player play at a time. So to have 2 in the running right now, it's a step in the right direction. So those two are very happy for the both of them. Yeah.
And I believe the selection camp is October 15th the 17th or something like
Yep.
that. So
sounds right. Yeah, middle of the month.
So,
There. Yeah.
big congrats and a big shout out to Anderson and Lamontang. So why don't you just quickly before we wrap up, the 18th and the 19th, what are the times for both of those days?
Yes. Game 1 on the 18th, Saturday the 18th is 4:30. Snowbirds against the Bucks, and then game 2 is 7 o'clock. Axemen against Ravens. Sunday morning, the semifinals at 11 a.m. And then the championship final game is at 2 on Sunday.
And of course, those both of those days they'll be out at the Dominey Arena as they have been for the past few weeks. And I'm honored. I've been honored to be behind the mic for the regular season, and I'm even more honored to be behind the mic for the playoffs because all 4 of those games should be fantastic. Justin Donchermont, thanks so much, and good luck rest of the way.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
This has been a special edition of the YXE Sports Podcast. Of course, we will return to Wendell Clark's Classic Grill and Bar on Monday night, hopefully with a special guest there too. But anyways, until Monday, stay safe.